The snow fell in thick, heavy flakes over Brooklyn, blanketing the streets in a pristine white that muffled the usual chaos of New York City. Christmas Eve had arrived with an unusual quietness, as if the world itself had decided to pause and take a breath. The sidewalks were nearly empty, most people tucked away in warm homes with families, exchanging gifts and laughter around decorated trees. Emma Harris stood behind the counter of Rosa's diner, wiping down the already clean surface for the third time in 10 minutes. The familiar motion kept her hands busy, kept her mind from wandering too far into thoughts she'd rather avoid. At 28, she'd spent enough Christmas Eves alone to know that keeping busy was the key to getting through the night. The diner was a relic from another era. Red vinyl booths with small tiers carefully patched with duct tape, a black and white checkered floor that had seen decades of footsteps, and a long counter with swivel stools that squeaked when you turned them. Strings of colorful Christmas lights draped across the windows, their reflection creating little halos in the frosted glass. A small artificial tree sat near the register, decorated with mismatched ornaments that Rosa had collected over 30 years of running this place. "You should head home, mija," Rosa called from the kitchen, her accent thick and warm like the hot chocolate she made from scratch. The older woman appeared in the service window, her round face creased with concern. "It's Christmas Eve. You shouldn't be here." Emma smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "And where exactly would I go, Rosa? My apartment is just 4 walls and silence. At least here I'm useful." Rosa shook her head, her silver-streaked dark hair catching the light. "You're always useful, Emma. Too useful. You work too hard, too many shifts. When do you live?" "I'm living right now," Emma replied, though they both knew it was a deflection. The truth was that work filled the spaces where loneliness might otherwise seep in. 3 jobs kept her rent paid and her mind occupied. The diner was her favorite. Rosa treated her like family, and there was something comforting about the routine of it all. The bell above the door chimed, and both women looked up. An elderly man shuffled in, snow dusting his worn coat. Emma recognized him, Mr. Peterson, a regular who lived alone in a rent-controlled apartment 2 blocks away. "Coffee, sweetheart?" Emma asked, already reaching for a mug. "Please," he said, settling onto a stool with a grateful sigh. "And maybe a slice of that apple pie if you've got any left." "For you?" "Always." Emma poured the coffee and cut a generous slice of pie, warming it slightly before adding a scoop of vanilla ice cream. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Peterson." The old man's eyes grew misty. "Merry Christmas, Emma. You're a good girl. Your parents must be proud." Emma's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Thank you. Eat up before it gets cold." She retreated to the far end of the counter, busying herself with organizing the sugar packets that didn't need organizing. Parents. The word always stung, even after all these years. Her father had walked out when she was 12, and her mother had remarried quickly, starting a new family that didn't quite have room for the daughter who reminded her of her first mistake. Emma had been on her own since 18, putting herself through community college while working whatever job she could find. The door chimed again. Emma glanced up, ready with her practiced smile, but the words of greeting died on her lips. The man who entered was unlike anyone she'd ever seen walk through these doors. He wore an expensive black overcoat, perfectly tailored, the kind that probably cost more than her month's rent. His dark hair was immaculately styled despite the snow, touched with silver at the temples. He was probably in his early 40s, with sharp features and dark eyes that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. But it wasn't his appearance that made Emma's breath catch. It was the look on his face. Raw, unguarded devastation barely held together by a thin veneer of control. She recognized him immediately. Everyone in Brooklyn knew Vincent DeLuca, at least by reputation. The newspapers called him the Silent Don, a man who'd risen through the ranks to control significant business interests in the city. There were always whispers about the nature of those businesses, speculation about connections to organized crime, but nothing had ever been proven. He was powerful, feared, and utterly untouchable. And right now, he looked completely lost. Vincent didn't acknowledge Mr. Peterson or glance at Rosa, who had gone very still in the kitchen window. He walked straight to the corner booth, the one furthest from the door and windows, and slid into it, his back to the wall. Old habits, Emma thought. Even in grief, some instincts remained. She waited a moment, giving him space, but when he made no move to look at a menu or call for service, she took a deep breath and approached. "Good evening," she said softly, keeping her voice gentle and non-threatening. "Can I get you something?" Vincent didn't look up immediately. His hands rested on the table, and Emma noticed they were trembling slightly. When he finally raised his eyes to meet hers, she saw something that shocked her more than his presence. Tears, barely held back, making his dark eyes glisten in the diner's warm light. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Emma felt her heart constrict with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Here was a man that half the city feared, sitting in a run-down diner on Christmas Eve, fighting back tears. "Coffee," he said finally, his voice rough and low. "Just coffee. Black." "Coming right up," Emma replied, but she didn't move immediately. Something kept her rooted to the spot. Is everything okay?" It was a stupid question, and she knew it the moment the words left her mouth. Obviously everything wasn't okay, but Vincent's expression shifted slightly. Surprise, perhaps, that anyone would dare ask. "Fine," he lied, and they both knew it was a lie. Emma nodded slowly. "I'll get that coffee." She walked back to the counter, acutely aware of Rosa's concerned gaze burning into her back. Mr. Peterson had noticed the new customer too, and his face had gone pale. He quickly finished his pie, left money on the counter, and hurried out into the snow without his usual lengthy goodbye. "Emma," Rosa hissed, "do you know who that is?" "I know," Emma whispered back, pouring fresh coffee into a clean mug. "But he's just a customer, Rosa. Just a person who walked in on Christmas Eve." "That's not just a person," Rosa argued, her voice tight with worry. "That's a person who looks like he's having the worst night of his life," Emma interrupted gently. "And we don't turn people away. Isn't that what you always taught me?" Rosa's expression softened, but worry still creased her forehead. "You be careful, Mija. Please." Emma carried the coffee back to Vincent's table, setting it down carefully in front of him. He stared at the dark liquid as if it held answers to questions he couldn't articulate. "Thank you," he murmured. Emma should have walked away. Every survival instinct she possessed told her to give this man space, to treat him like any other customer and maintain professional distance. But she'd spent too many nights alone, too many holidays drowning in silence, not to recognize the particular brand of loneliness radiating from him. "I'm Emma," she said, surprising herself. "If you need anything else, just let me know." His eyes flicked up to her face again, searching for something. "Emma," he repeated, as if testing the name. "Vincent." "I know," she admitted. I've heard the name." A ghost of a bitter smile touched his lips. "I'm sure you have. Nothing good, I imagine." Emma hesitated, then made a decision that would change everything. She slid into the booth across from him, ignoring the sharp intake of breath from Rosa's direction. "I try not to judge people based on what I hear," Emma said quietly. "In my experience, everyone's fighting battles nobody else knows about. And tonight, you look like you're fighting a particularly hard one." Vincent stared at her, and for a moment, she thought she'd overstepped, that he would tell her to leave or worse. But then something in his expression cracked, just slightly. "You have no idea," he whispered. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sounds the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant rumble of a snowplow passing on the street outside. Emma watched as Vincent wrapped his hands around the coffee mug, seeking warmth he couldn't seem to find. "My brother died," Vincent said suddenly, the words tumbling out as if they'd been locked inside too long. 3 days ago. Heart attack. He was only 39. Emma's own heart clenched. "I'm so sorry." "Marco was..." Vincent's voice caught and he had to pause, struggling for control. "He was the only one left. The only family I had. The only person who remembered me before I became... this." He gestured vaguely at himself, at the expensive coat and the reputation that preceded him, at the life he'd built that now seemed hollow. "What was he like?" Emma asked gently, instinctively knowing that Vincent needed to talk, needed someone to listen. Vincent's expression softened with memory. "Funny. God, he was funny. Always making jokes, even in the worst situations. He wanted to be a teacher, did you know that? Taught middle school history. Loved those kids like they were his own." A tear finally escaped, tracking down Vincent's cheek. He didn't bother to wipe it away. "He was good. Everything I'm not." "I doubt that's true," Emma said softly. "You don't know me." "No," she agreed. "But I know that good people don't cry for those they love. They cry because they loved deeply and lost something irreplaceable. That's not nothing, Vincent, that's everything." He looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. Emma felt exposed under that gaze, but she didn't look away. "Why are you here?" Vincent asked. "On Christmas Eve in an empty diner talking to a stranger." Emma glanced around the familiar space, then back at him. Same reason you are, probably. Nowhere else to be. No family? Not in any way that matters, she replied, keeping her voice steady. My dad left when I was young. My mom remarried, had other kids. I was sort of the reminder of her past mistakes, you know? We don't talk much. Or at all, really. Vincent's expression shifted to something like understanding. And friends? Emma shrugged. When you work 3 jobs just to keep your head above water, there's not much time for friends. People drift away when you can't show up for birthdays or weekend plans. Eventually, they stop inviting you. 3 jobs, Vincent repeated. I'm sorry. It was Emma's turn to offer a small, sad smile. Don't be. I'm surviving. That's more than some people can say. She paused, then added, though I'll admit, some nights the surviving feels a lot like just going through the motions. I know that feeling, Vincent murmured. I've built an empire, command respect from hundreds of people, have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. And tonight, sitting in my penthouse surrounded by expensive furniture and silence, I realized I had absolutely no one to call. No one who'd want to hear from me. Marco was the last person who saw me as a brother instead of... He trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. Emma reached across the table, a bold move, and gently touched his hand. Vincent's eyes widened slightly at the contact, as if he couldn't remember the last time someone had offered him simple human comfort. You're not alone right now, Emma said quietly. And neither am I. Maybe that's enough for tonight. Vincent turned his hand over, carefully, almost reverently, until his palm pressed against hers. His hand was warm, larger than hers, with calluses she wouldn't have expected from a man in expensive suits. Tell me about Marco, Emma encouraged, settling more comfortably in the booth. What's your favorite memory of him? A genuine smile crossed Vincent's face, transforming his features. There was this one Christmas. We must have been 12 and 7. Our mother had worked double shifts for weeks to afford presents. Nothing fancy, just a basketball for me and some art supplies for Marco. But we thought we were the richest kids in Brooklyn. Emma smiled, encouraging him to continue. Marco wanted to paint the whole apartment. Vincent continued, his voice growing warmer with the memory. He made these murals on newspaper, taped them to every wall. Our mother was horrified at first, but they were actually beautiful, simple, childish, but full of joy. He painted our family, our neighborhood, even our old dog, Rocco. He sounds talented, Emma said. He was. Could have been an artist if he'd wanted, but he loved teaching more. Said every kid deserved someone who believed in them. Vincent's expression clouded again. I went to his apartment yesterday to handle things. Those old newspaper paintings were still there, framed on his walls. He kept them all these years. Fresh tears welled in Vincent's eyes, and this time he let them fall. Emma squeezed his hand, offering silent support, as grief washed over him in waves. He never gave up on me, Vincent whispered. No matter what I became, what choices I made, what rumors circulated, he'd call every Sunday just to check in, ask about my week like I was a normal person with a normal life, and his voice broke. I took it for granted, assumed he'd always be there. He knew you loved him, Emma said with quiet conviction. I'm certain of that. How can you be certain? You didn't know us. Because you're here, falling apart in a diner on Christmas Eve instead of hiding away that grief. Because you kept those Sunday calls even when I'm sure your schedule was impossible. Because you're talking about him like he was the best part of your world. Trust me, Vincent. He knew. Vincent closed his eyes, letting Emma's words sink in. They sat like that for several long minutes, hands clasped across the table, 2 lonely souls finding unexpected comfort in each other's presence. Rosa approached cautiously, carrying a pot of fresh coffee and 2 slices of apple pie. She set them down gently, her expression softening as she took in the scene. On the house, she said quietly to Emma. Nobody should be sad on Christmas Eve, and nobody should be alone. Thank you, Rosa, Emma said gratefully. The older woman nodded, glanced at Vincent with less fear and more compassion than before, and retreated to the kitchen. She's scared of me, Vincent observed. She's protective of me, Emma corrected gently. There's a difference, but she's also kind. You'll see. Vincent looked down at the pie, then at Emma. When was the last time you ate? Emma laughed softly. I could ask you the same thing. Touché. Vincent picked up his fork, and Emma did the same. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, the simple sweetness of the pie somehow exactly what they both needed. This is really good, Vincent said, surprised. Rosa makes everything from scratch, She says food made with love tastes better, and I think she's right. Emma took another bite, savoring it. This diner has been my sanctuary for 2 years now. When the world gets too loud or too quiet, I come here. Rosa feeds me, lets me work, treats me like I matter. You do matter, Vincent said firmly, with such conviction that Emma felt a lump form in her throat. To Rosa, maybe. To the regular customers who know my name. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm just another person struggling to pay rent in an impossible city. That's not true, Vincent insisted. Emma, look at me. She raised her eyes to his, struck again by the intensity she found there. You showed kindness to a stranger on Christmas Eve, Vincent continued. Not just any stranger. Someone with a reputation that would make most people cross the street. You sat with me, listened to me, held my hand when I was falling apart. Do you know how rare that is? How precious. Emma felt tears prick her own eyes now. You needed someone. I've been where you are. Not exactly, but close enough to recognize the look. I know what it's like to feel invisible, to wonder if anyone would notice if you just disappeared. I couldn't walk away from that. You're extraordinary, Vincent said softly, and I'm grateful, more grateful than you know. They finished their pie slowly, neither wanting to rush, both instinctively understanding that this moment was something special, something neither of them had experienced in far too long. Genuine human connection without agenda or expectation. The snow continued to fall outside and the diner remained otherwise empty. It felt like they existed in a bubble, separate from the rest of the world, where a mafia boss and a struggling waitress could simply be two people sharing pie and stories on Christmas Eve. Tell me about your jobs, Vincent said, pushing his empty plate aside. What else do you do besides work here? Emma grimaced slightly. I'm a receptionist at a dental office 3 days a week, mornings. Then I work here most evenings. And on weekends I do freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. Mostly. Bookkeeping? Vincent's interest sharpened. You're good with numbers? Pretty good, yeah. I studied accounting at community college before I had to drop out. Couldn't afford to continue and student loans were piling up. But I kept the skills. Vincent studied her thoughtfully. Why did you have to drop out? Emma sighed. My roommate moved out unexpectedly. Stuck me with double rent. I had to choose between housing and education. Housing won, obviously. I kept telling myself I'd go back, but every time I save up a little money, something happens. Car breaks down. Emergency dental work. Landlord raises rent. It's like the universe doesn't want me to get ahead. Or, Vincent suggested gently, the system is designed to keep people like you struggling. It's not the universe, Emma. It's economics, and opportunity, and 100 other factors outside your control. Maybe, Emma agreed. But knowing that doesn't make it easier. What would you do? Vincent asked. If money wasn't an issue. If you could pursue anything. Emma didn't have to think about it. Finish my degree. Start my own bookkeeping firm. Help small business owners who can't afford the big accounting companies. My dad, before he left, he had a small restaurant. It failed partly because he couldn't manage the finances properly. I always thought if someone had helped him, really helped him understand the numbers, maybe things would have been different. Maybe he wouldn't have felt so overwhelmed. Maybe he wouldn't have left. Vincent's expression was unreadable. You want to help people. Is that so strange? In my world? Yes. Vincent's voice carried a note of sadness. In my world, everyone wants something. Power, money, connections, protection. Nobody just wants to help for helping's sake. That sounds lonely, Emma observed. It is. Vincent reached for his coffee, which had gone cold. Emma immediately stood to get him fresh cup, but he caught her hand. Stay, please. The coffee doesn't matter. Emma settled back into her seat, acutely aware that his hand still held hers. I can't remember the last time I had a conversation like this, Vincent admitted, where someone asked about me. The person, not the position, where I felt like I could just talk, without measuring every word, without strategy or agenda. Everyone deserves that, Emma said. To be seen as a person, not a function. You see me as a person? Vincent asked, something vulnerable in his voice. I see a man who loved his brother deeply and is grieving that loss. Emma replied honestly. I see someone who's been strong for so long that showing weakness feels impossible, but you're doing it anyway. I see someone who's probably made choices he regrets, like we all have, but who's still capable of feeling, of caring. So yes, Vincent, I see a person. Vincent brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. It was an old-fashioned gesture, courtly and unexpected. Emma's breath caught. "Thank you," he whispered against her skin. They stayed like that, the moment stretching between them, electric and tender. Emma knew she should pull away, should maintain professional boundaries, should protect herself from the complication that Vincent DeLuca represented, but she couldn't bring herself to break the connection. The clock on the wall chimed midnight, and Rosa's voice called softly from the kitchen. "Merry Christmas, you two." Emma and Vincent both turned toward the sound, then looked back at each other, something shifting in the air between them. "Merry Christmas, Emma," Vincent said, his voice rough with emotion. "Merry Christmas, Vincent." They smiled at each other, really smiled, and for the first time in years, neither of them felt alone. "You know," Emma said softly, "you don't have to be alone. Not tonight anyway. If you want, you can stay here. We can talk more or sit in silence, or I can teach you how to properly clean a coffee maker." She tried for humor, hoping to lighten the moment. Vincent's expression was filled with something Emma couldn't quite identify: gratitude, wonder, and something deeper, more dangerous. "I'd like that," he said simply. "I'd like that very much." And so they stayed, as midnight turned to 1, then 2, then 3. They talked about everything and nothing: childhood memories, favorite books, the best pizza in Brooklyn, dreams deferred and hopes barely kindled. Vincent helped Emma wipe down tables, laughing when she showed him the proper technique. She taught him how to refill the napkin dispensers, and he told her stories about Marco that made them both laugh and cry. Rosa eventually dozed off in the back office, leaving them alone in the warm glow of the diner's lights. Outside, the snow had stopped, leaving Brooklyn blanketed in pristine white, the city holding its breath in the quiet hours of Christmas morning. As dawn began to paint the sky with subtle shades of pink and gold, Emma and Vincent stood by the diner's window, watching the world wake up. "I should go," Vincent said reluctantly. "My people will be wondering where I am." "Your people," Emma repeated. "That sounds both important and isolating." "It's both," Vincent confirmed. He turned to face her fully, his dark eyes intense in the early morning light. "Emma, this night has meant more to me than you could possibly know." "It's meant a lot to me too," Emma admitted, suddenly shy. Vincent reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card, along with an elegant pen. He wrote something on the back, then handed it to her. "My personal number," he explained. "Not many people have it. If you ever need anything or if you just want to talk, please call me. Anytime, day or night." Emma took the card, her fingers brushing his. "I will. And Vincent, thank you for trusting me tonight, for letting me see the real you. You made it easy," he replied. "You made it safe." They stood there, neither quite ready to say goodbye, both knowing that this moment, this connection, was something rare and precious. Finally, Vincent leaned down and kissed Emma's forehead gently, a gesture of such tenderness that she felt tears spring to her eyes. "Merry Christmas, Emma Harris," he whispered. "You've given me a gift I didn't know I needed." "You too," she managed, her voice thick with emotion. Vincent walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle, and looked back one more time. "I'll call you. I hope you do." And then he was gone, disappearing into the early morning light, leaving Emma standing alone in the diner with a business card clutched in her hand and the feeling that her life had just irrevocably changed. Rosa emerged from the back office, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She took one look at Emma's face and smiled knowingly. "Mia, I think you just made a very dangerous friend." "Maybe," Emma agreed, still staring at the door. "Or maybe I just made the most important connection of my life." "Time will tell," Rosa said wisely. "But for now, let's close up and go home. It's Christmas, and even we deserve some rest." As Emma helped Rosa shut down the diner, she couldn't stop thinking about Vincent's tears, his stories about Marco, the way his hand had felt holding hers. She thought about loneliness and connection, about the walls people built to protect themselves, and the courage it took to let them down. She tucked Vincent's business card carefully into her pocket, right next to her heart, and smiled. For the first time in years, Christmas didn't feel quite so lonely. 3 days passed before Emma heard from Vincent again, 3 days during which she went through the motions of her routine, the dental office, the diner, the weekend bookkeeping, while constantly checking her phone, wondering if that Christmas Eve conversation had been just a beautiful anomaly, a moment out of time that would never repeat itself. She was restocking supplies in one of the dental office's examination rooms when her phone buzzed. Her heart jumped as she saw the unfamiliar number. though somehow she knew exactly who it was. Emma? It's Vincent. His voice sounded different over the phone, more controlled, more guarded than it had been in the diner. Emma could hear background noise, the murmur of other voices, the distant sound of traffic. "Hi," she said, unable to keep the smile from her voice. "I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind about calling." There was a pause, then Vincent's voice came back softer, more like the man she'd sat with on Christmas Eve. "I've picked up the phone to call you about 50 times. I kept stopping myself. Why? Because I wasn't sure if I dreamed that night," he admitted, "or if you'd regret giving me your time. If the daylight would make you realize how foolish it was to sit with someone like me." Emma's chest tightened. "Vincent, I don't regret a single moment. Do you?" "No," he said immediately. "Not even close, that's why I'm calling. I know this might sound strange, but would you have dinner with me? Tonight, if you're free?" Emma glanced at her watch. Her shift at the dental office ended at 5, and she wasn't scheduled at the diner until tomorrow. "I'm free. Where did you have in mind?" "There's a small Italian restaurant in Manhattan, on the Upper East Side. Mama Lucia's. It's quiet. Family-owned. The food is incredible. I could send a car for you around 7. Emma hesitated, suddenly aware of the gulf between their worlds. "Vincent, I should be honest. I don't exactly have Upper East Side dinner attire. I'm a 3 jobs kind of girl, remember?" His laugh was warm and genuine. "Emma, you could show up in pajamas and you'd still be the most beautiful person there. But if it makes you feel better, it's a casual place. Jeans are fine. It's about the food and the company, not the dress code." "Okay," Emma agreed, feeling both nervous and excited. 7 o'clock, but I'll meet you there. You don't need to send a car." "Emma, I insist," she interrupted gently. "Let me do this my way, please." Another pause. Then his voice came back with something like respect in it. "All right, text me when you're on your way." "I will. See you tonight, Vincent." After ending the call, Emma stood in the examination room, her reflection staring back at her from the glass cabinet. What was she doing? Getting involved with Vincent DeLuca was complicated at best, dangerous at worst. But when she remembered his tears, his stories about Marco, the genuine connection they'd shared, all her rational concerns faded into background noise. That evening, Emma stood in front of her tiny apartment's mirror, surveying her limited wardrobe options. She'd settled on dark jeans, a soft cream sweater that Rosa had given her for her birthday, and the one nice pair of boots she owned. Simple, but clean and presentable. The subway ride to Manhattan gave her time to think, to question, to wonder what this evening would bring. The city rushed past the windows in a blur of lights and movement, each stop bringing her closer to a decision point she hadn't fully processed yet. Mama Lucia's was tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop on a quiet side street. Warm light spilled from its windows, and Emma could see checkered tablecloths and wine bottles lining the walls. It looked welcoming and unpretentious, not at all what she'd expected when Vincent mentioned the Upper East Side. Vincent was waiting outside, and Emma's breath caught when she saw him. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal sweater under a leather jacket, dressed down, but still impossibly elegant. When he saw her approaching, his entire face transformed with a smile. "You came," he said, as if he'd genuinely doubted she would. "Of course I came," Emma replied, surprised. "Why wouldn't I? I thought maybe you'd reconsider. Think better of spending time with me." He gestured toward the restaurant. "Come on, you're going to love this place." Inside, Mama Lucia's was everything the exterior promised. The air was rich with the scent of garlic, tomatoes, and fresh bread. An older Italian woman with steel-gray hair and a warm smile immediately embraced Vincent like a long-lost son. "Vincent, troppo tempo, too long." She kissed both his cheeks, then turned sharp eyes on Emma. "And who is this beautiful girl?" "Mama Lucia, this is Emma. Emma, this is the best cook in all of New York." "Bah, flatterer," Lucia said, but she was clearly pleased. She took Emma's hands in hers, studying her face. "You have kind eyes like my daughter. Come, come, I have the perfect table for you." She led them to a corner table, quieter and more private than the others, with a small candle flickering between them. "I bring you something special tonight," Lucia announced. "No menu. You trust Mama, yes?" "Always," Vincent agreed, and Lucia bustled away with obvious satisfaction. Emma looked around the restaurant, taking in the photos on the walls, family gatherings, christenings, weddings, all the markers of a life lived in love and community. "How did you find this place?" "Marco brought me here," Vincent said, and his voice caught slightly on his brother's name. About 5 years ago. He'd been coming here for years, said Lucia, reminded him of our grandmother. After that first visit, I started coming regularly. Lucia treats everyone like family, but she and Marco had a special bond. He'd help her with computer problems, and she'd send him home with enough food for a week. She knows about Marco? Emma asked gently. Vincent nodded. I came here the day after he died, sat right at this table and told her. She cried with me, fed me, wouldn't let me leave until she was sure I was okay. Well, as okay as I could be. She cares about you. She's one of the few people who sees me as more than my reputation. Vincent agreed. Like you do. A young man brought them wine, a rich red Chianti that Lucia had selected. Vincent raised his glass. To unexpected connections. Emma clinked her glass against his. To Christmas Eve conversations that change everything. They sipped the wine, letting the comfortable silence settle between them. Emma noticed that Vincent seemed more relaxed here than he had in the diner, as if Mama Lucia's was another sanctuary where he could let his guard down. Tell me about your week, Vincent said. How have you been? Emma laughed softly. My week has been remarkably normal. Work, work, and more work. Though I'll admit, I've been distracted, thinking about our conversation, wondering if I'd hear from you. I'm sorry I made you wait. I was trying to give you space to reconsider, to protect you from the complications I bring, but I couldn't stay away. He paused, then added, Emma, I need you to understand something. My life is complex. There are aspects of my business, my associations, that exist in gray areas. I'm not going to lie to you about who I am or what I do. Emma set down her wine glass, meeting his eyes steadily. I appreciate your honesty, and I won't pretend I don't know your reputation. But Vincent, I also know what I saw on Christmas Eve. I saw a man grieving his brother, someone capable of deep feeling and genuine emotion. That's who I'm choosing to see, to know. Whatever else you are, you're also that person. You have remarkable faith in people, Vincent observed. Not people, Emma corrected. Just you, and I can't explain why, but I trust my instincts on this. Lucia returned with the first course, a caprese salad so fresh and perfect that Emma actually gasped. Mama, this is incredible. Is nothing, Lucia said, waving off the compliment, but she was smiling. You wait for the main course. Vincent, you take care of this girl, yes? She is special. She is, Vincent agreed, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. Very special. As they ate, conversation flowed easily. Vincent asked about Emma's jobs, genuinely interested in the details of her daily life. She told him about Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman whose books she managed, who paid her in homemade dumplings as often as in cash, about Rosa's dreams of expanding the diner but never having quite enough capital, about the dentist she worked for, Dr. Morrison, who was kind but completely disorganized. In turn, Vincent talked about his legitimate businesses, restaurants, a few small hotels, import-export companies. He spoke carefully, Emma noticed, always staying on the legal side of his empire, but she appreciated that he was trying to be honest without burdening her with information that might endanger her. Marco wanted me to go completely legitimate, Vincent admitted, as Lucia brought the main course. Homemade lasagna that looked like a work of art. He had this whole plan mapped out. Said I had enough legitimate income now that I could slowly distance myself from the other aspects, build something clean that I could be proud of. Did you want that? Emma asked. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, carefully cutting his lasagna. I didn't think I deserved it. The legitimate world, the clean life. I thought I'd made my choices and had to live with them. But Marco believed I could change. He believed in redemption, in second chances. And now? Now he's gone and I keep wondering if he was right. If it's too late for me to become someone different, someone better. Vincent looked up at her, vulnerability clear in his dark eyes. Do you believe people can really change, Emma? Emma thought about her own life, about the dream she'd had to defer, about the person she'd thought she'd become versus who she actually was. I think people can change if they want to badly enough, if they have a reason to. But it's not easy, and it's not instant. It's a choice you have to make every single day. What if the world doesn't believe you can change? What if your past defines you too much? Then you find people who see beyond your past, Emma said firmly. You surround yourself with people who believe in who you're becoming, not who you were, and you prove day by day, through actions, not words, that change is real. Vincent reached across the table, taking her hand. You're incredibly wise for someone so young. Emma laughed. I'm not that young, and wisdom is just a fancy word for learning things the hard way. Trust me, I've learned plenty the hard way. They finished dinner slowly, savoring each course that Lucia brought. The lasagna, followed by a simple arugula salad with lemon, then cannoli so perfect that Emma closed her eyes in bliss at the first bite. Okay, this is officially the best meal I've ever had, Emma declared. Lucia would adopt you immediately if she heard you say that, Vincent said, smiling. She's always trying to feed the world. She reminds me of Rosa, same energy. Like they believe love can be communicated through food. They might be right, Vincent mused. Some of my best memories involve Marco and me at our mother's table. She wasn't a great cook, but she tried so hard. Every Sunday, no matter what, we'd have dinner together. Just the three of us after our father passed. Marco would tell stories about his week, make us laugh until our sides hurt. Mom would pretend to be scandalized by his jokes. And He trailed off, lost in memory. You'd what? Emma prompted gently. I'd feel normal, Vincent finished quietly. Like I was just a son and a brother, not everything else I was becoming. Those Sunday dinners were sacred. Even after Mom passed, Marco and I kept the tradition. Every Sunday, somewhere, somehow, we'd share a meal. You must miss that terribly. I do, Vincent admitted, his voice rough. This is actually Sunday, first one without him. I almost couldn't face it being alone. That's partly why I called you. Selfish maybe, but I needed— It's not selfish, Emma interrupted. We all need connection, especially when we're grieving. I'm honored you thought of me. Vincent's thumb traced circles on her palm, a gesture both soothing and electric. I haven't stopped thinking about you since Christmas Eve. About how you looked at me without fear or judgment. How you held my hand while I fell apart. How you made me feel human again. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. You made me feel less alone too. Do you know how rare that is? To meet someone and immediately feel like you can be yourself, completely and honestly? Rare for you maybe, Vincent said with a slight smile. You're open and genuine with everyone, I'd bet. Not like this, Emma corrected. I'm friendly, sure, professional, but I keep people at arm's length mostly. It's easier that way. Less chance of disappointment when they inevitably leave. Who left you, Emma? Vincent asked, his perception cutting through her deflection. Emma sighed, pulling her hand back to wrap both around her wine glass. My father, obviously, but also friends, boyfriends, anyone I've let get close. I used to think something was wrong with me, that I wasn't worth staying for. Now I think I just pick people who are as emotionally unavailable as I am. Past tense? Vincent caught the nuance. Past tense, Emma confirmed, looking directly at him. Because you're emotionally unavailable in completely different ways, and somehow that makes all the difference. Vincent laughed, surprised and genuine. That might be the strangest compliment I've ever received, but I'll take it. Lucia returned to clear their plates, studying them both with knowing eyes. You two, you fit, she announced as if it were a simple fact. I see these things. Vincent, you bring her here every Sunday, yes? We make it tradition. Mama, you're getting ahead of yourself, Vincent protested, but he was smiling. Bah, I know what I know. Lucia patted Emma's shoulder. You are good for him. I see it already. He smiles like he used to, before the weight of the world sat on his shoulders. After Lucia left, Emma and Vincent looked at each other, something shifting in the air between them. Every Sunday? Emma asked, half teasing, half serious. Would that be so terrible? Vincent countered. A new tradition to replace the one I lost? Emma considered this, the weight and promise of it. No, she said finally. It wouldn't be terrible at all. In fact, I think I'd like that very much. They left Mama Lucia's around 10, stepping out into the cold January night. The streets were quieter now, the city settling into its late evening rhythm. Vincent walked Emma toward the subway station, but slowly, as if neither wanted the night to end. Can I ask you something? Emma said as they walked. And you can tell me if it's too personal. After everything we've shared, I don't think anything is too personal. Vincent replied. Why did you really come to the diner on Christmas Eve? I mean, of all the places you could have gone, why there? Vincent was quiet for several steps, his hands in his pockets, his breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Honestly, I was driving around Brooklyn, no destination in mind. I'd been sitting in my apartment for hours, surrounded by condolence messages from people who worked for me, business associates offering respects they didn't really mean. Everyone was so formal, so distant. No one mentioned Marco's laugh or his terrible dad jokes or the way he'd light up talking about his students. He paused at a street corner, looking up at the night sky where a few brave stars managed to shine through the city's light pollution. I wanted to go somewhere that would remind me of him. Somewhere simple and real, the kind of place Marco loved. Your diner had Christmas lights in the window, and I remembered Marco talking about this little place in Brooklyn where the owner treated everyone like family. I thought maybe it was the same one. Turned out I was right. He'd taken me there once, years ago. I'd forgotten until I walked in and saw Rosa. And then you found me instead, Emma said softly. And then I found you, Vincent agreed, turning to face her. The best unexpected gift I could have received. They had reached the subway entrance. Emma knew she should go down those stairs, return to her normal life, process everything that had happened tonight. But she found herself hesitating, not ready to break this connection. Vincent, she began, then stopped, unsure how to voice what she was feeling. I know, he said quietly, stepping closer. I feel it too. This thing between us, whatever it is, it's real and it's terrifying, and it's the most alive I've felt in years. What do we do about it? Emma asked, searching his face. We take it one day at a time, Vincent suggested. We see each other when we can. We talk honestly. We figure it out as we go. No expectations, no pressure, just connection. Is that enough for you? Emma thought about all the reasons this was complicated, all the ways it could go wrong. But she also thought about how Vincent made her feel, seen, valued, understood. And she thought about the man she'd glimpsed beneath the reputation, capable of deep love and genuine change. It's enough, she decided. More than enough. Vincent smiled, relief, and something deeper flooding his features. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. Thank you, he whispered, for taking a chance on me, for seeing possibilities instead of just problems. Thank you for calling, Emma replied, for trusting me with your grief and your hopes, for being honest. They stood there on the cold street corner, the city moving around them, two people finding warmth in each other's presence. Vincent leaned down slowly, giving Emma every opportunity to pull away, and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, then to her cheek. Get home safe, he murmured. Text me when you arrive? I will, Emma promised. And Vincent? Same time next Sunday? His smile could have lit up the entire street. It's a date. I'll pick you up at 6:30. I'll meet you at Lucia's at 7, Emma countered, stubborn about maintaining some independence. Vincent laughed, accepting her terms. 7 it is. Good night, Emma. Good night, Vincent. Emma descended into the subway, her heart full and her mind racing. As the train carried her back to Brooklyn, she pulled out her phone and found a text already waiting. Already miss you. Thank you for tonight. V. She typed back quickly. Thank you for taking a chance on Sunday dinners with a waitress. Already looking forward to next week. His response came immediately. Not just a waitress, an extraordinary woman who's changing my entire world. Sleep well, Emma. Emma held her phone to her chest, smiling despite herself. She knew there would be challenges ahead, complications neither of them could fully predict. But right now, in this moment, she chose to focus on the possibility, on the connection, on the genuine affection growing between them. When she got home to her tiny apartment, Emma found herself looking at the space differently. It was still small, still shabby, but somehow it felt less lonely than before. She had somewhere to be next Sunday, someone to talk to who genuinely cared about her answers, a connection that felt real and precious and worth protecting. As she got ready for bed, her phone buzzed once more. One more thing. You were beautiful tonight, inside and out. Sweet dreams. V. Emma fell asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of Sunday dinners and unexpected connections, of second chances and the courage to believe in them. 3 weeks passed in a rhythm that felt almost dreamlike to Emma. 3 Sunday dinners at Mama Lucia's, each one deepening the connection between her and Vincent. They talked about everything. Childhood memories, favorite books, dreams they'd abandoned and ones they still harbored. Vincent told her about Marco's students sending letters after his death, each one a testament to the lives he'd touched. Emma shared her secret dream of opening a community center that offered free financial literacy classes to struggling families. But their relationship existed in a careful bubble, separate from the rest of their lives. Vincent never mentioned his business associates, and Emma didn't ask. They met at Lucia's, occasionally took walks through quiet Manhattan neighborhoods, and texted throughout the week. It was beautiful and fragile, like something precious held in cupped hands. That fragility shattered on a cold Tuesday afternoon in late January. Emma was organizing files at the dental office when her phone rang. Vincent's name on the screen made her smile automatically, but his voice immediately told her something was wrong. "Emma, I need to see you. Tonight, if possible. It's important." The tension in his voice sent worry spiraling through her chest. "Of course. What's wrong?" "Not over the phone. Can you come to my apartment? I'll send you the address." Emma hesitated. In 3 weeks, Vincent had never invited her to his home, always meeting her in neutral spaces. The shift felt significant. "Okay. What time?" "Whenever you can get here." "Emma, I'm sorry, I should have been more careful." "Vincent, you're scaring me. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, but we need to talk about how to keep you safe." The word safe echoed in Emma's mind long after they hung up. She left work early, making an excuse to Dr. Morrison about a family emergency. The address Vincent sent was in Tribeca, an exclusive building with a doorman who clearly expected her, waving her through to the private elevator. Vincent's penthouse occupied the entire top floor. When the elevator doors opened directly into his apartment, Emma stepped into a space that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city. The furniture was elegant, but surprisingly warm. Leather sofas, wooden bookcases filled with actual books, artwork that looked personal rather than just expensive. Vincent stood by the windows, still wearing a dark suit from whatever meetings had filled his day. When he turned to face her, Emma saw the tension etched in every line of his body. "Thank you for coming," he said, crossing to her immediately. He took her hands, studying her face as if memorizing it. "I've made a mistake, Emma, a serious one." "What happened?" Vincent led her to the sofa, sitting close enough that their knees touched. "I was careless. I've been so focused on keeping our time together separate from my business that I didn't consider how closely I'm always watched. Someone noticed my routine changes. The Sunday dinners, the different schedule. They followed me last week." Emma's stomach dropped. "They know about me. They know I'm seeing someone. They don't know who you are yet, but they will. These people are thorough." Vincent's grip on her hands tightened. "Emma, I need you to understand what this means. My world isn't just complicated. It can be dangerous for people who matter to me. I've kept so few personal connections precisely to avoid this situation." "What are you saying?" Emma asked, though part of her already knew. "I'm saying I need to make a choice. Either I distance myself from you completely, make it clear you mean nothing to me, or—" He paused, meeting her eyes with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Or I claim you publicly as someone under my protection. But that second option brings you fully into my world, with all the complications that entails." Emma pulled her hands free, standing up to process this information. She walked to the windows, looking out at the glittering city below. "Who are they? The people watching you?" "Business associates. People I work with who believe personal attachments are weaknesses to be exploited." Vincent came to stand beside her, careful not to touch her. "They're not going to harm you. I need you to know that. But they will investigate you, possibly approach you, try to determine if you're a threat or an asset." "An asset to what?" "To controlling me, influencing my decisions." Vincent's reflection in the window looked pained. "This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Why I've stayed alone for so long, why Marco was the only person I let close." Emma turned to face him fully. "And what do you want, Vincent? Not what's strategic or safe, but what do you actually want?" Vincent's expression cracked, revealing the raw emotion beneath his controlled exterior. "I want you. God help me, Emma. I want Sunday dinners and text messages and conversations that make me remember I'm human. I want to fall asleep knowing I'll hear your voice the next day. I want everything I have no right to want." "Then why are we even having this conversation?" Emma asked, surprised by her own certainty. "You want me, I want you. Yes, it's complicated. Yes, there are risks. But Vincent, I've spent my entire adult life playing it safe, keeping people at arm's length, settling for less than I deserve because it was easier. And I'm tired. I'm so tired of safe and alone." "Emma, you don't understand what you'd be taking on." "Then explain it to me," she interrupted. "Stop protecting me from information and treat me like an adult who can make her own choices. Tell me exactly what being under your protection means." Vincent studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. The truth. All of it." He gestured back to the sofa, and they both sat, this time with Emma tucked against his side, his arm around her shoulders. "My business interests are diverse," Vincent began carefully. "Some are completely legitimate, Restaurants, hotels, import, export. Others exist in gray areas. I have partnerships with people who aren't concerned with legal niceties. For years, I maintained a careful balance, keeping the legitimate and illegitimate separate. But after Marco died, I've been reconsidering everything. What do you mean? Marco spent years trying to convince me to go completely legitimate. He had a whole plan. Use the legal businesses to gradually phase out the questionable ones. Work with attorneys to protect myself legally while transitioning. I always dismissed it as naive, impossible. But now, Vincent's voice roughened. Now he's gone, and I keep thinking about what he said, that I could be someone different, build something I could actually be proud of. Emma listened, processing. And your associates wouldn't like that. They'd see it as weakness, as betrayal potentially, which is why the timing of you appearing in my life is both perfect and terrible. Vincent turned to look at her directly. Emma, you make me want to be the man Marco believed I could be. But that transformation isn't instant or easy. It will take time, strategy, and careful maneuvering. And in the meantime, if you choose to stay with me, you'd need to be careful. No more taking the subway alone late at night. A security detail when you're out, at least for a while. Your apartment isn't safe enough. Either you move to a more secure building or, he hesitated, or what? Or you move in here, with me. Vincent said it quickly, as if afraid she'd reject the idea outright. I know it's too fast, too much, but this building has security, cameras, a doorman who knows everyone who enters. You'd be safe here. Emma's mind reeled. Move in with Vincent after less than a month. It was absurd, reckless, completely insane. And yet, looking at his face, seeing the genuine concern there, she couldn't dismiss it outright. I need time to think, she said finally. This is a lot to process. Of course. Vincent looked relieved that she hadn't said no immediately. Take whatever time you need. But Emma, I need to know, are you willing to try? To navigate this complicated situation together? Because if not, I need to distance myself now. Make it clear you're nothing to me before anyone gets too interested. Emma thought about Christmas Eve, about Vincent's tears and his stories about Marco. She thought about Sunday dinners and the way he listened when she talked, really listened, as if her words mattered. She thought about how he made her feel seen and valued in ways no one else ever had. I'm willing to try, she said, surprising herself with the conviction in her voice. But I have conditions. Name them. First, no more secrets. If something affects me, I need to know about it. I can't make good decisions without information. Agreed. Second, I keep working. All 3 jobs. I won't become dependent on you financially, at least not yet. I need to maintain my independence. Vincent looked like he wanted to argue but nodded. I understand, though I wish you'd let me help you. Vincent, I need this. Can you understand that? He studied her face, then nodded slowly. I can. What else? Third, you work on the legitimate transition. Not because I'm demanding it, but because it's what Marco wanted. What you want deep down. I'll support you through it, but you have to actually commit to the process. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. That's going to take time. Years, possibly. It's not as simple as walking away. I know, but we start the process. We work toward it. Deal? Deal. Vincent pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. You're remarkable. You know that. Most people would run. Most people haven't spent years feeling invisible and alone. Emma countered. I know what I'm choosing, Vincent. I'm choosing connection over safety, possibility over certainty. And yes, it terrifies me. But not as much as losing what we've found terrifies me. Vincent kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Emma felt both grounded and like she was flying. So, she said, trying to lighten the mood, tell me about this security detail you mentioned. Because if you think I'm going to have some scary bodyguard following me around the dental office, we might have a problem. Vincent actually laughed, the tension finally breaking. Not scary, professional, and discreet. You probably won't even notice them most of the time. Somehow I doubt that. They spent the rest of the evening talking through logistics. Vincent showed Emma the guest room. In case you want your own space, he'd said, which was larger than her entire apartment. They discussed her work schedule, her concerns about Rosa worrying, how to explain sudden security measures without revealing everything. Around midnight, Emma called for a car to take her home. Despite Vincent's protests that she should stay. Baby steps, she reminded him. Let me process all this. Adjust. We have time, right? All the time you need, Vincent assured her, though his reluctance to let her go was evident in every gesture. As Emma rode back to Brooklyn in the comfortable town car Vincent had insisted on, she stared out at the city lights and wondered what she'd just agreed to. Her life had been simple 3 weeks ago, difficult but predictable. Now she was dating a man with dangerous associates, considering moving into a Tribeca penthouse, agreeing to security details. It should have felt overwhelming, terrifying. Instead, Emma felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. She pulled out her phone and texted Vincent. Made it home safe. Thank you for being honest tonight. For trusting me with the truth. I meant what I said. I'm choosing us. Whatever that looks like. Sweet dreams. E. His response came quickly. Thank you for choosing me. For believing I can be better. You have no idea what that means. I'll call you tomorrow. Sleep well, beautiful. V. Emma fell asleep that night knowing her life had irrevocably changed. The careful distance she'd maintained from the world. The walls she'd built to protect herself from disappointment. Vincent was dismantling them all, brick by brick. And instead of feeling exposed, she felt free. The next morning, Emma noticed the security immediately. A nondescript sedan parked across from her apartment building. The same sedan followed her subway route, a professional-looking woman in her 30s keeping a careful distance. At the diner, Rosa noticed too. Mija, why is that woman watching you? Emma had prepared for this question. It's a long story, Rosa. Can we talk after my shift? That evening, Emma told Rosa an edited version of the truth, that she was seeing Vincent seriously, that his position required certain precautions, that she was safe but needed to be careful. Rosa listened, her expression cycling through concern, fear, and finally, reluctant acceptance. You love him, Rosa said finally. It wasn't a question. Emma started to deny it, then stopped. Did she love Vincent? After less than a month, it seemed impossible. But when she thought about losing him, about going back to her life before Christmas Eve, the pain that shot through her chest felt an awful lot like love beginning to take root. I think I might, Emma admitted quietly. Is that crazy? Love is always a little crazy, Rosa said with a sad smile. Just promise me you'll be careful, that you won't lose yourself in his world. I promise, Emma said, hoping it was a promise she could keep. 6 months had transformed Emma's world in ways she could never have imagined that snowy Christmas Eve. She had moved into Vincent's penthouse in March, not out of dependence, but as a practical choice that allowed them to build something real together. Her mornings still began early. She'd kept her job at the dental office and her bookkeeping clients, maintaining the independence that mattered so much to her identity. But the evenings were theirs. Cooking dinner together in Vincent's stunning kitchen, talking about their days, slowly building a life that felt both extraordinary and beautifully ordinary. The changes in Vincent were even more remarkable. He'd begun the painstaking process of legitimizing his business empire, working with a team of attorneys to unravel decades of complicated partnerships. It wasn't easy. There were tense meetings, difficult negotiations, relationships that ended when Vincent made his intentions clear. Emma watched him navigate it all with a determination she found inspiring. He'd lost some associates who saw his transformation as betrayal, but he'd also reconnected with distant family members, started attending charity events for causes Marco had cared about, slowly becoming the man his brother had always believed he could be. Now, on a warm evening in late June, Emma stood in Mama Lucia's restaurant, surrounded by the people who had become her family. Rosa was there, having closed the diner early. Dr. Morrison and his wife had come, along with several of Emma's bookkeeping clients. Vincent's cousin Maria, who'd reached out tentatively 3 months ago and had since become one of Emma's closest friends, was helping Lucia arrange flowers on the tables. It was Emma's 29th birthday, and Vincent had insisted on celebrating properly. You look beautiful, Mija, Rosa said, embracing Emma warmly. The older woman had been skeptical at first, protective and worried, but seeing Emma flourish, watching Vincent treat her with genuine respect and devotion, Rosa had gradually accepted their relationship. Happy and beautiful, that's all I ever wanted for you. I am happy, Emma admitted, surprised by how true it was. Happier than I ever thought possible. Vincent appeared at her side, slipping an arm around her waist. He looked different than he had 6 months ago, still polished and elegant but softer somehow. He smiled more readily now, laughed more freely. The weight he'd carried seemed lighter, shared between them rather than borne alone. Can I steal you for a moment? He asked, Gesturing toward the small private garden behind the restaurant, Emma followed him outside, where string lights created a warm glow against the deepening twilight. The garden was peaceful, fragrant with herbs and flowering plants that Lucia tended lovingly. "I wanted to give you your gift privately," Vincent said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Emma's heart jumped. "Vincent, it's not what you think," he said quickly, though his smile suggested he knew exactly what she'd thought. "Not yet, anyway, though I hope someday soon you'll let me ask you properly." He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant. A key, intricately detailed and beautiful. "It's the key to Marco's apartment," Vincent explained, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been fixing it up, turning it into something new. A community center, actually, with classrooms for financial literacy courses, tutoring spaces for kids who need help with homework, a small library. Everything Marco would have loved." Emma's eyes filled with tears as understanding dawned. "Vincent, that's incredible. I want you to run it," he continued. "Not as an employee, as a partner. We'll set it up as a nonprofit, get proper funding, hire staff. But the vision, the heart of it, that should be yours. You told me once about wanting to help people the way no one helped your father. This is your chance." Emma couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of the gift, by what it represented. Vincent wasn't just giving her a project, he was investing in her dreams, showing her that he'd listened to every word she'd ever spoken. "There's more," Vincent said, pulling out a folder. "I've been working with my attorneys on something. The legitimate businesses are almost entirely separated from the questionable ones now. By the end of the year, I'll be completely clean. No more gray areas, no more partnerships I'm ashamed of. Just honest business I can be proud of." "Vincent, that's amazing," Emma whispered, reaching for his hand. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said simply. "You and Marco, you both believed I could be better, and you made me want to prove you right." He paused, his dark eyes searching hers. "Emma, I need to tell you something. I've been working with federal authorities." Emma's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I've been providing information about some of my former associates. Nothing that puts anyone in immediate danger, but enough to help with ongoing investigations. In exchange, I received immunity for my cooperation. It's part of how I've been able to transition out so cleanly." He looked nervous, as if worried about her reaction. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but my attorneys advised against it until everything was finalized. It became official this morning." Emma processed this information, understanding the magnitude of what he'd done. "You chose to do the right thing, even though it was risky." "I chose you," Vincent corrected. "I chose the future we could have together. I chose to become someone worthy of the faith you've shown in me." Emma pulled him close, kissing him with all the love and pride she felt. When they separated, both were smiling through tears. "So about that community center," Emma said, trying to lighten the emotional moment. "Does this mean I can finally quit the dental office?" Vincent laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "You can do whatever makes you happy, Emma. That's all I've ever wanted." They returned to the party to find Lucia had brought out an enormous birthday cake covered in candles. Everyone sang, cheerfully off-key, and Emma made a wish she realized had already come true, to feel loved, valued, and part of something bigger than herself. As the evening wound down, Emma found herself talking with Maria near the dessert table. "You've been good for him," Maria said quietly. "I haven't seen Vincent this at peace since we were kids, before life got complicated. Thank you for not giving up on him." "He didn't give up on himself," Emma replied. "I just believed in the person he was becoming." "That's more than anyone else did," Maria pointed out. "Most people wrote him off, assumed he'd never change. You saw possibilities instead of just problems. That takes courage." Later, as they walked back to the penthouse through the warm summer night, Emma reflected on how much had changed since that Christmas Eve. She'd walked into Rosa's diner expecting another lonely holiday. Instead, she'd found Vincent, broken and grieving, but capable of profound transformation. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "About how none of this was in my plan," Emma admitted. 6 months ago, I was just trying to survive, working 3 jobs, barely making rent, convinced I'd always be alone. And now, she gestured around them, at the life they'd built together. "And now?" Vincent prompted. "Now I'm planning a community center, living in a penthouse, dating a man who's becoming a legitimate businessman. It's surreal." "Good surreal or bad surreal?" Emma stopped walking, turning to face him under the glow of a streetlight. "The best surreal. Vincent, I want you to know something. I don't care about the penthouse or the expensive dinners or any of the material things. What matters is this. Us. The way you listen when I talk about my day. How you remember that I hate mushrooms but love olives. The way you've honored Marco's memory by becoming the man he knew you could be. That's what I fell in love with. Vincent's expression transformed with wonder and joy. You love me? Emma smiled, realizing she'd said it out loud for the first time. I love you. Probably have since that first night, if I'm honest. You were so broken and real and human, and every day since you've shown me more reasons why. Vincent kissed her then, deep and passionate, right there on the sidewalk with the city moving around them. When they finally separated, both were breathless and smiling. I love you too, Vincent said, his voice rough with emotion. More than I knew was possible. You've given me back my humanity, Emma. You've made me believe in second chances and redemption and all the things I'd written off as impossible. They continued walking, hands intertwined, talking about plans for the community center. Vincent described the renovations he'd commissioned. Bright classrooms with new computers, a cozy library space with comfortable seating, a community kitchen where Rosa had already volunteered to teach cooking classes. I was thinking we could name it after Marco, Emma suggested. The Marco De Luca Community Center, a place dedicated to helping people, just like he did. Vincent stopped walking again, his eyes glistening with tears. He would have loved that. And you. God, he would have loved you, Emma. I wish I could have met him, Emma said softly. He's here in a way, Vincent replied, gesturing to his heart. Every good choice I make, every time I choose compassion over calculation, I hear his voice encouraging me. He brought us together, really. If he hadn't died, I never would have ended up in that diner on Christmas Eve. Then I'm grateful, Emma said, even though I hate that you lost him. Because finding you, building this life together, it's been the greatest gift of my life. Back at the penthouse, they stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering city below. Emma thought about all the paths that had led her to this moment. Her father leaving, her mother's rejection, the years of struggling alone, the decision to work Christmas Eve instead of sitting home in loneliness. Every disappointment, every hardship had somehow been necessary to bring her here, to this man, to this love that felt both unexpected and inevitable. What happens now? Emma asked, leaning back against Vincent's chest as his arms wrapped around her. Now we build our future, Vincent replied. We open the community center. We help people the way Marco would have wanted. We prove that change is possible, that people can become better versions of themselves. He paused, pressing a kiss to her temple. And eventually, when the time is right, I'm going to ask you to marry me properly, with a ring and a plan and all the romance you deserve. Emma turned in his arms, smiling up at him. Is that so? That's so, Vincent confirmed. Unless you'd prefer I didn't. Oh, I definitely prefer you did, Emma assured him. But I'm in no rush. We have time, right? All the time in the world. All the time in the world, Vincent agreed, kissing her again. As summer settled over New York, Emma and Vincent fell into new rhythms. She spent her days planning the community center, working with contractors and educators to create something truly special. Vincent continued his business transformation, taking meetings with nonprofit boards and charitable foundations, building a reputation as someone genuinely committed to giving back. On Sundays, they still went to Mama Lucia's, maintaining the tradition that had started their relationship. Lucia would cook their favorite dishes, tell stories about her own family, and treat them like the children she'd never had. It was simple and perfect, and everything they both needed. Rosa's diner became another gathering place. Emma still worked occasional shifts, refusing to completely let go of the job that had brought Vincent into her life. Rosa had reluctantly accepted Vincent, especially after he'd quietly helped her secure a small business loan to expand the diner, asking nothing in return except that she continue treating everyone like family. The community center opened in September, on what would have been Marco's 40th birthday. Over 100 people attended, former students, family members, neighborhood residents curious about the new resource. Emma gave a short speech about the center's mission, her voice steady and proud. Vincent stood in the back watching her with obvious pride and love. Maria nudged him, smiling. You did good, cousin. This place, Emma, it's all good. I got lucky, Vincent replied. A scared, lonely man walked into a diner on Christmas Eve, and a remarkable woman chose to see past everything I was to what I could become. That's not luck, that's grace. That evening, back at the penthouse, Emma and Vincent sat on the terrace, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Do you ever regret it?" Vincent asked suddenly. "Choosing this complicated life with me instead of something simpler?" Emma considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I think about how much easier my life could have been if we'd never met. No security concerns, no complicated transitions, no navigating your past." She paused, meeting his worried gaze. "But then I remember that easier doesn't mean better. My life before you was simple but empty. Now it's complicated and full of love, purpose, possibility. I choose full every single time." Vincent set down his wine glass and pulled a small box from his pocket, different from the one that had held the necklace. Emma's heart raced as he dropped to one knee. "I know I said I'd wait for the perfect moment," Vincent began, his voice shaking slightly. "But Emma, every moment with you is perfect. You walked into my life when I was at my lowest, and you chose to stay even when leaving would have been easier. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You've made me want to be better, do better, love better." He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a simple solitaire diamond that caught the fading light and threw rainbows across the terrace. "Emma Harris, will you marry me? Will you build this beautifully complicated life with me? Will you be my partner, my conscience, my home?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Yes. 1,000 times. Yes." Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood to kiss her as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting their future in shades of gold and promise. They had found each other in darkness, two lonely souls seeking connection on a cold Christmas Eve. And together, they had chosen light. Imperfect, complicated, absolutely real light. The kind that comes from genuine love, hard-won transformation, and the courage to believe that everyone deserves a second chance. As the stars began to appear above New York City, Emma and Vincent held each other, grateful for Christmas Eves and kind-hearted waitresses, for brothers who believed in redemption, and diners that served pie to broken men